The NDP votes for obscurity. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. NDP voters have decided they don't want to have a party that contends for governing the country. They want to go back to being a principled rump. Two things happened at the NDP convention over the weekend in Redmonton. The New Democrats all but adopted the LEAP Manifesto, meaning their party policy will now call for killing off large chunks of the Canadian economy. Then they voted to turf NDP leader Tom Mulcair, partly because the same people that wanted the LEAP Manifesto and its radical ideas adopted also believe the NDP lost the last election because they weren't left-wing enough.
Don't let this very divided vote divide us. Let's all work together now to choose the best person to take our project forward. Merci. Thank you. On continue.
There's so much craziness here, I don't know where to begin. But let me start by stating some truths that you just won't hear anywhere else. The NDP did not fail to win the last election because they were not sufficiently socialist. And the NDP did not fail to win the last election because Tom Mulcair dragged the party too much to the centre, to the mushy middle of Canadian politics. These are fallacies peddled by people that don't take the time to analyze facts, trends, or data. They're just pushing an agenda. Think about it. The NDP lost the last election. Why were they even thought of as contenders? It wasn't because of Jack Layton. Happy Jack, as good a leader as he was, passed from this earth on August 22, 2011. Tom Mulcair became NDP leader in April 2012. And Mulcair came as close to winning a federal election as any NDP leader ever has. And for that, his party turfed him. The NDP took just shy of 20% of the vote, 19.7% to be exact. That's down 10 points from the last election, but tell me the last time an NDP leader took more than that in a general election? Wasn't Jack Layton in 2004. He got 15%. And it wasn't Jack Layton in 2006. He moved all the way up to 17%. And it wasn't Jack Layton in 2008 when the NDP took 18% of the vote. No, other than the 2011 election, the one that shot them into official opposition status, the last time an NDP leader won more than Mulcair was in 1988, the free trade election where Ed Broadbent took 20%. Layton ran 3 elections with results worse than Mulcair. Alexa McDonough ran 2 that saw around the 10% mark, and Audrey McLaughlin, she scraped by with 6% of the vote. But Mulcair got turfed. Again, you will hear that this is all because he took the party to the center, that he was too middle of the road. Let's test that theory. Can you recall any federal election where people spoke seriously about the prospect of the NDP winning? No, of course not. Even 2011, their breakthrough year, that was all about winning, surprisingly winning opposition status, and plenty of people were shocked at that. Mulcair should be given credit for much of that victory in 2011 as well. The party swept Quebec. He was the Quebec lieutenant. He was the man put in charge of building a presence and game in Quebec. He did that. The party had no presence before that. In 2015, when the NDP was leading, or at least contending strongly in a 3-way race, it was due to the party's support in Quebec, which Mulcair helped consolidate that. So think about it. Yes, Mulcair did moderate the NDP to a degree. He wanted to show that they were still a left-wing party, but they would be fiscally responsible. The goal was to attract enough swing voters from the Liberals to win power, and damn it, he came close. As the election was called, Forum Research had the NDP at 40%, the Conservatives at 28%, and the Liberals at 25%. Over the coming weeks, those numbers, at least a strong NDP lead, would be backed up by other pollsters. Abacus on August 18th. They had the NDP at 35, Conservatives 29, Liberals 26. Angus Reid on August 26th. NDP at 36, Conservatives 32, Liberals 23. And on September 17th, Environic still had the NDP in the lead. Mulcair and company had 34% support. The Liberals were rising to 29. The Conservatives were down to 26. After that, the NDP fortunes were set for a downfall. Why? Why then? What happened? Did voters suddenly realize Mulcair wasn't a woolly socialist? He wasn't left-wing enough? No. This is exactly the point where the niqab issue really entered the debate. The ruling saying that Zinera Ishak could take the oath of citizenship with her face covered by the niqab came down on September 15th. Mulcair championed the ruling. He said it was the right thing to do. He stood by Ms. Ishak, even as polls showed overwhelming opposition across the country, but especially in Quebec. This is when Mulcair and the NDP went from leading and/or contending to trailing in the polls. Inside Quebec, support for the New Democrats cratered. And when that happened, when the Quebec support vanished, and it happened as Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, well, were having a couple of good weeks on the campaign, well, as that happened, progressive voters in the rest of the country who just wanted to get rid of Stephen Harper and the Conservatives at all cost looked around and threw their lot in with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. Trudeau and the Liberals did not lead in a single poll during the election campaign until a week after the niqab ruling. Now, media in English Canada downplayed the niqab issue, or they tried to shame and guilt Canadians that opposed the wearing of the niqab at citizenship ceremonies. In Quebec, it was completely different. Opposition was widespread. Debate in the media and elsewhere was constant. Consider these two polls. On September 10th, less than a week before the niqab decision came down, the NDP had 45% support in Quebec, according to Forum Research. 2 weeks later, September 25th, the same polling firm found that the NDP support in Quebec had dropped to 34%. As Quebec crumbled and the Liberals began to rise, the NDP simply could stop the bleeding. No NDP leader has come as close to winning a federal election as Tom Mulcair. And the thanks he gets for that, for building a base in Quebec, a province they'd never elected an MP in until he came along, for building a national election machine capable of contesting for the highest office, the thanks Mulcair gets for all that he did is to be turfed as party leader and for the party to adopt the type of platform policies that used to get them 6% in elections. I disagree with the NDP on pretty much anything, and my contacts with Mulcair have been strained, to say the least.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian. Brian, as you know, Brian.
Of course, Brian, that's not what I said.
But I call a spade, and in this instance, Mulcair is getting a raw deal. He's being blamed for losing the election, but he's being blamed on the wrong issue. It was his stance on the niqab, not any attempt to moderate the crazy within the NDP, that lost the party the election. Now, by turfing Mulcair and adopting the essence of the LEAP Manifesto, a rejection of capitalism, a rejection of the oil industry, a belief in cradle-to-grave socialism, the NDP is essentially saying they don't want to contest for power in an election again. They'd rather sit up on the side, the far left side, be the so-called conscience of Parliament. Welcome to the new NDP. Welcome to obscurity.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.